Well, hey there, and congratulations on signing up for Ministry Designs for a brand new website for your church. We're incredibly thankful to be partnering with you and coming alongside you to help you build a really effective website. And so, what do I mean when I say effective website? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to define in this particular presentation or in this video. But ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the form and help you understand why we're doing the things that we're doing and asking you for the things that we're asking you for in this onboarding form while we're collecting your content. It's really important that you just take a couple of minutes, you watch this video, and you set aside a little bit of time to get organized through the checklist provided in the form so you can submit the content. It's really going to expedite this entire process. But we want to just reinforce what it is that we're going to help you accomplish. We're going to deliver you a highly effective website. And in order to understand what a highly effective website is, we need to define effective. And so in the next couple of minutes, that's what I'm going to do. But first, let me just tell you why we exist. We exist to help you reach people for Jesus. And we exist to reach people for Jesus by helping you connect with your community and your congregation. And we want to do that by delivering a really effective website that allows people to discover you, like what they see, trust you, and then give them a clear call to action and engage with you. And so conceptually, for years, we've understood that we need to measure people's assimilation. And in the early 90s to the mid 2000s, this concept emerged of this next steps framework. And it was kind of a way for us to measure assimilation or church health or church growth or whatever. But ultimately, what it allowed us to do is allow us to see while people are moving from what phase of their relationship with the Lord as they deepen their relationship with your church. But the fact of the matter is that people's relationship with your church actually start long before they ever walk through the front door. And so we need to think through a critical way to solve this existing ladder. So the problem is it starts with a visit. Then, we want to move people into a small group or get them connected. And then they become a time, talent, and treasure giving participant in your church. And then ultimately then they achieve membership or whatever that looks like for you. It could look different for everybody. But the fact of the matter is times have changed. People turn to the internet for over 83% of their decision-making, shopping decisions or engagement decisions. And so if we ultimately won't go to a restaurant without reading a review, and that's just where society is today, we have to understand that inviting them to a church or having them participate in a church service is significantly more meaningful to them as an individual than eating a cheeseburger is. And so there are some responsibilities that we have to take on. 4,600 people every single month search for the search for, 460,000 people search the search term church near me. But then 2.5 million people search for the search term church in a particular city. And that's just of the largest 100 cities in America. So if you extrapolate that out, that's tens of millions of people every single month searching for a church in your community. And so it's our job to help your website show up on the first page of Google. And if not, what's happening is, and maybe the reason you're seeing a slow growth or maybe a decline in attendance is because we haven't built a large enough ladder or a bridge or provided the first 4 steps required for somebody to show up on a Sunday morning. And so they're seeing, you see the illustration there where basically we have a ladder and it just doesn't quite reach the visit phase. And so what we're going to do with your new website is we're going to build bridges into your community, and we're going to help you do that by collecting your information through the form below. And so the first next step actually happens right now. It happens before anybody ever walks through your front door. And so that's me. It's kind of a funny thing that it's really what we're doing is I'm Chef Tyler, and we're going to give you the recipe. And so you can have a recipe or you can, let's say hypothetically you want to make a pizza. Now you could throw the dough and the sauce and the eggs and the flour, whatever it is. You can throw the cheese, the toppings, the pepperoni, the sauce, whatever it may be. You can throw it all into a bowl. And if you don't mix it appropriately or you don't do it in the correct step, you're going to end up with a bad experience. And so what we've done is we've created a proven formula that's ultimately a recipe that guides people through the first 4 steps that are required so that they will show up on a Sunday morning. And those first four steps are discoverability, like, trust, and engagement. And so ultimately what we've done is we've removed the barrier to somebody visiting your church on a Sunday morning. These first four steps actually happen on your website. And when they're done correctly, we give people a clear assimilation flow from your community to an engaged member in your church. And so that's why it's really important that while we're collecting the content that you read the things, the blurbs and the helpful tips, because we're going to guide you on what some of that content should look like, where it should go, how it should happen. And we're going to deploy this framework on the website that we're building on your behalf. So we call this the next steps framework. And really, just like that, the website actually becomes the single most important in somebody's next steps journey to your church or with your church. Because if we can't ever get them through the front door, we never have an opportunity to help them make a deeper connection with the local body and ultimately help them develop spiritually in their relationship with the Lord. And the best part is this really works for everybody. It works for large churches, for small churches, for church plants, big churches, small teams, any denomination. But what an effective website actually does, it's more than just being pretty. An effective website ranks well on Google. It is new visitor focused. It has a built-in strategy for engagement, and it ultimately becomes a hub of communication for your local congregation. And those are the four steps that we're going to talk about real quickly. So discover, like, trust, and engage. So let's talk about Discover real quick. We already talked about the search volume of people, but there are people that are actively searching every single day for a church in your community. Our objective is to get your website hopefully on page one. But what we're going to do is when we're building out the content, we're going to build it out in a way that's optimized so that Google has as many data points as they possibly can with the information that you provide us. Now, you'll hear me refer to search engine optimization, or you'll see this form. In the form, we refer to search engine optimization or Discover. We'll use those things interchangeably. But we want to provide as much information to Google as we possibly can so that it has as many data points as it can to ultimately rank your church when somebody's searching for a church in your city. And it's really important that we try to get your site to page one. The fact of the matter is, nobody goes to page two. There's an old joke in the search engine optimization community. In the modern year, where does the mafia go to bury a dead body? No, it's on page two of Google because nobody goes there. The second thing that we're going to try to accomplish is we want people to discover you, and then we want them to like what they see. And ultimately, this is your first impression as a church. And we don't necessarily mean you need to have the most modern or trendy design. What we're trying to help you accomplish is we're trying to help you accomplish some of the standard design principles that don't contradict what people are expecting to see. See, the fact of the matter is people will automatically associate good design with a good future quality experience, but they'll do the same thing in a negative way. So if they see a bad design where things are improperly spaced or there's inconsistency in your fonts or colors or whatever it may be, they're going to automatically associate that design with a bad future quality experience of your church. And we know that that's not a fair representation of who you are. And so we want to make sure that we get this right. Now, you may look at this and say, hey, this is a good design, but in retrospect, it's actually not a full representation of who this church is. And so we want to help build those bridges into your community, and we want to make it quote unquote likable. And so we want to basically turn your website into a window of your congregation. You'll see that they have pictures of people and their congregation and meetings, and then eventually they'll get to the events and the upcoming things that they've got going on. But then they've got a wide view of the congregation again. I've heard it said that the church website is the new front door to your church. And in fact, I actually actively reject that concept. There's a whole lot to be said for waking my family up, plowing through the snow, feeding my 3 kids, showering my 3 kids, dressing my 3 kids, putting them in the minivan, traversing out into the winter weather, walking through the parking lot, getting wind beat in the face, and then showing up on a Sunday morning, all while attempting not to end up into an argument with my family. It's a whole lot different than just sitting on my couch and watching online. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people from discovering you on the internet and building bridges through the front door of your church. Now, it's nice, and there is a part of the Discover, Like, Trust, and Engage framework that requires us to have our services online, but that's not the end all be all. We want to actually move people from that phase into the next phase. And so we want to make sure that your website is aesthetic, and all of the kits that we offer conform to this framework. And as long as you keep that spacing consistent and reliable, or the font types consistent and reliable, you're going to be okay on the like phase. Now, the next phase is trust. And this is ultimately our responsibility. Just like in a human to human relationship, we don't immediately demand trust, right? Like my wife had to discover me, then she had to like me, then she had to trust me, and then and only then would she engage me. And just like it was my responsibility to earn her trust and her father's trust and her family's trust and the people that care about her trust, as church leaders, it's our responsibility to earn the trust of the people in your community so that they'll feel comfortable walking through the front door of your church. And we do that by proactively answering some questions. Now, we like to call these the Views to Pews FAQs. And so these are some of the things that you'll be able to think through and answer on your behalf, or on behalf of your website. You want to make sure that you're proactively addressing some of these things. If you have like a unique parking situation, or you're a rural community, or your volunteers are CPR certified, you want to think through some of the objections that people in your community might have, and then answer how you've addressed those particular objections. And so it's, again, our responsibility to nurture the trust phase of that relationship. And we do that by being transparent. We do that by being true to our culture. One of the things that I want to strongly recommend that you do not do is provide us with any stock photography. Now, our kits come pre-designed with some stock photography, and it's okay to use some of it, but you don't necessarily want to use stock photography in an instance where you're implying that this is a representation of your congregation. Because ultimately what we're doing is we're actually starting the relationship that we're trying to build with somebody on a misrepresentation of who we are. Therefore, we're actually lying to them, and then it's giving them a negative perception of who we are. Because if we can trick them to coming on a Sunday morning and they show up and it's not what they've seen on your website, it's ultimately going to leave a bad taste in their mouth, therefore preventing them from coming back and ultimately engaging in your assimilation process, and ultimately giving you the opportunity to influence their spiritual development and help them develop as believers in the Lord. So the next step is engagement. And we just want to provide clear call to actions. What that means is we have one page that does one thing. We have a home page that we provide a clear call to action to, the new here page that we have one call to action on. We don't want to give people paralysis by analysis. We don't want to give them lots of different things to think about when they're on a particular page. If they're on the children's page, we want them to either register their kids or download this form or whatever it may be. One thing, one page. It really helps with the accumulation of information, and it makes it logical for the person consuming it. When you put lots of different buttons and lots of different options on there, you're preventing those people from being able to understand what it is exactly that they're doing on that page and why they're spending their time there. And so that is our framework in a nutshell. It's discover, like, trust, and engage. And your website, if you follow this form, is actually going to fulfill all of those things. But it's important, again, that you take some time, you review the checklists, and you do the best that you can to ultimately be able to fill this information in with accurate, true representation of who you are. And I just want to say this. I know people think a lot about, well, the stock photography thing. I just want to encourage you to be who you are as a church. There is somebody in your community that is looking for exactly who you are. If you're called to minister to that community, then the opportunity for you to minister is there. You don't necessarily have to be the mega church down the street, or you don't have to be, the church, the trendy church up the road. What you need to be is genuine in who you are and true to who it is that God has called you to be as a church. And there are people in your community that will resonate with, and that they will ultimately show up on a Sunday morning as a result of you being clear and transparent about what it is that you're trying to accomplish in their lives and in your community, and ultimately helping them develop a further and deeper relationship with the Lord. So I hope this presentation was helpful. We're really excited to get started. But again, make sure you take a look at that form. Read through all of the helpful tips, and do your best to provide that information to the greatest extent of your ability. Thanks again, and we're excited to get started.